Winning Tea Party skirmishes versus winning political wars. And why, if you're a Democrat, you might not want to compare Obamacare to Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare and try to make your point. Next, coming up on Get Right with Lenny McAllister, coming up right
now. Get Right with Lenny McAllister.
Say what?
The way we help bring back America and we build the bridges and bring people together is by making sure we hold everybody accountable in a 360 fashion.
So let me close with this. Yes, there is a change that we can believe in, but it will never come from a politician or a government program.
You cannot find physical sanity here in the land of Lincoln, from Carbondale to Elgin, in which collectively continue to tolerate insanity found on the streets of South Chicago and East St. Louis, Illinois.
We got to move away from the American Idol soundbite nature of politics and back to the American statesman of humble servant leadership that we used to see in politics.
It is time to roll out the era of the new, educated, engaged, and energized American citizens.
I go do the jail ministry. I speak to the kids in the streets. So I'm never going to lay down being a conservative just as much as I'll never lay down being a proud African American.
I feel like a black republic. Money I got coming in. Can't turn my back on the hood. I got love for them. Can't clean my act.
Well, if Wednesday proved anything, it was that it wasn't necessarily hump day when it came to the American people getting over the hump when it came to this government shutdown. So I welcome you to day 3, October 3rd, 2013, where it's not just the third day of October, and it's not just the third day of Bucktober for those of us following the Pittsburgh Pirates. It is also the third day of a government shutdown, and it's the third day with apparently not much change and not much hope. Definitely not much hope and change, even though Obamacare's up, I guess, for those that were rooting for Obamacare, that you got that going on. But in regards to the country, things aren't going in the right direction with this. So let's talk about that. Again, I'm welcoming you here to another round of Get Right with Lenny McAllister, the podcast where you can respond on Facebook and on Twitter, and had some very interesting conversations, actually. So keep tuned to the podcast because we may have some bigger and brighter things developing. So I want to welcome you here once again. And just like I said, stay tuned to not just here with us, but this government shutdown thing. And I'm not going to take the position that it's just the Democrats or it's just the Republicans. And I've already gotten feedback from people, phone calls, tweets, Facebook, direct messages on Twitter, direct messages on Facebook, where people being frustrated with me because they think that I'm blaming one side or the other. They think that I'm simply saying Democrats are at fault because you've done this self-repeal, but you don't want to delay it for individuals, but you delay the employer mandate, or you've given exceptions or any of this other stuff. I've never said that it's just one side's fault or the other. I continuously say this is the epitome of what you get in American politics when both sides can't talk to each other and they stop respecting each other. It's as if one side doesn't think that the other side's American. And if you listen to the rhetoric, it's exactly what they're saying. So you have one side saying the Republicans don't care about poor people. They don't want you to have insurance. That's not true. I know it sounds great in a soundbite for 30 seconds on cable news someplace, but that's not true. So if you said something that was more true, you might be able to resonate deeper, might not be as quick. And if you're looking for that quick hit resonance, or that quick hit reaction, sure, it's not going to be as effective, but it will take root and mean more for the country. And again, I think the Democrats have forgotten that. The Republicans just flat out call all Democrats socialists for the most part. And there weren't, again, when you talk about the Obamacare negotiations, and that's what they were, negotiations, bribes, whatever you want to call them between the Democrats and the Democrats in 2010. Some people call them both. When you look at that, there weren't a whole bunch of socialists just dealing with each other. You had some blue dog Democrats that did not want what the original healthcare reform plan was after they were able to get Arlen Specter to flip. And I still wonder what the heck it took for Arlen Specter to flip. I know he wanted to get reelected, but to be a Republican as long as he was, before he went from Democrat to Republican back to Democrat, people don't know that. people don't understand that it wasn't just that the elections had consequences. You had a recount in Minnesota that went on for a while. You had Arlen Specter flip. They had to manufacture that 60. And once they were able to do that, then they had to hope that they can hold on to Ted Kennedy's seat in 2010. They didn't do that. So then they had to go through basically the procedural rigmarole, the procedural Olympics, if you will, to make sure that they can get this passed. And so I look at both sides, and I still say both sides didn't do this right, whether it's the shutdown or how it was passed or the lack of negotiations in 2009 and 2010 to get us to this point in 2013. But there's a couple things that I talked about at the top of the podcast before we got on air that I want to get to today, that I want you to really be cognizant of and remember, because everybody's going to talk about where we are right now. I want to talk about how we got here, because there's a lot of, I talked about this yesterday, there's a lot of myths out there that people don't want to address or talk about, and now everybody's taking these talking points that don't make sense. And I know I only have about 20 minutes, so I could really dive into this for a while, but I'm not. I'm just going to hit it on the surface, let you all respond, and we'll talk about it more tomorrow. So, and again, I'm going to continue to take a both sides approach in regards to assigning blame. So I will start with the Democrats. I will start, and I'm just picking a random side. If I started with the Republicans would call me a rhino. If I started with the Democrats, they're going to say that I'm siding with the Republicans. If you just stick around for a second, you'll see that I'm going after both sides and saying, you know what, you could have prevented us from getting here either way. So let's start with the Democrats. I was listening to Leader Reid after he came out of the White House saying that, we're not going to negotiate on Obamacare at all. We're tired of playing these games. This is the Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare of this generation. This is the signature legislation that will help Americans. Now, you might be right with that. This will benefit some Americans. There are some good things in the ACA. And I think that the majority of Republicans would say that. I think the pre-existing conditions, good thing. If you're going to grad school and you're on your parents' insurance through the age of 25, good thing. I don't know if you're surfing in California, your parents live in New York, and you're just kind of doing much of nothing. I don't know about that. I think that if you got your own apartment and you're just surfing, then I don't know. But I'm not willing to shut down the government over that point. I'll tell you that much. But anywho, I'm listening to Leader Reid talk about all this, that, and the other. And I'm thinking to myself two things, and they'll tie together. This will get us over to the Republican side. First, the Democrat side. If you're making the point that this is the Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare of our time, aren't you saying that this is the entitlement program of our time? And aren't entitlements the very things that are bankrupting this country because we don't have the money to pay for the programs, which is why people opposed how this Obamacare was put in place in the first place, because they said it was going to bankrupt the country because we didn't have enough money to pay for it all? That's a very bad argument to make if you are the Democrats. If you're going out there saying, listen, Social Security benefited you and Medicaid, Medicare benefit those that need it, and that's why we have to fight for Obamacare. You are literally playing into the conservative movement's hands and those that are very fearful of the national debt, very fearful of the debt ceiling going up after we've already hit $17 trillion. Much of that money is due to the entitlement spending. Why would you go in front of a microphone and remind people that premiums might go up, so it's going to hurt the individual in many, many instances? That employers do not want this, so they've either been cutting hours or begging for exceptions, and then they ended up getting a delay. And then from there, once this is all implemented, we were given one cost, and then the CBO said, oops, it's going to be a little bit more than that. And there have been other estimates that it's even be a little bit more than that. And we don't know where the cost is going to go. And with the baby boomers retiring and stagnant employment and slipping behind in the global realm when it comes to education, when it comes to employment, when it comes to innovation. Who's going to pay for it? So if you have people that are afraid of the cost of Obamacare, afraid of the cost of the ACA, afraid of the cost of where we're going with this version of healthcare reform, because again, I don't think anybody's opposed to reforming the healthcare system in America, but they are afraid of the cost of how this law is in place. That's what it boils down to the average conservative. Now, there are some that have made this a personal vendetta against the president. I get that. I will not deny that. But not everybody is against this because of President Obama. My personal opinion, I would prefer my president to succeed. I want my president to succeed from the middle and bring people together. And I say my president because I'm an American. He's the American president. That's my president. Whether you all like it or not, he is our president. So you would want your president to succeed, but it's how do you want him to succeed? And I personally would like him to succeed from the middle, which is not what he's doing. Now, we Republicans would not have to worry about this if we knew the difference between winning Tea Party skirmishes and winning political wars. I won't even go into the debt ceiling situation in 2011, where we had some wins. And agree, disagree with me, Facebook, Twitter. You know where to find me on Twitter, LennyMcAllister. Retweet, put your comments out there. Agree, disagree. You know I love back and forth debate. I'm an American. I love doing this with people, whether we're both conservatives or we're a conservative and a liberal, whatever. Same thing with Facebook. Find me there as well. Here's my thing, though. We don't know the difference. We did this with the debt ceiling. We had wins, and we kept pushing for more. I kept pushing for more. I kept pushing for more. I kept pushing for more. And guess what happened? Ran out of time, didn't work, and then the credit rating went down. And we've been suffering through that ever since 2011. And we're still looking at unemployment over 7%. We're still watching people jump out of the workforce because they're completely disillusioned. But this goes back to learning the difference between winning Tea Party skirmishes versus winning political wars. I'm watching Harry Reid last night in front of the White House, in front of microphones, insulting Republicans, and I didn't need to. I didn't need to see Harry Reid. Do you want to know why I didn't need to see Harry Reid? Because he should have lost in 2010. He was extremely vulnerable, and all the momentum was going towards the Republican nominee. Whoever that Republican nominee, if they just played their cards right, had some principles about them when it came to how to run a senatorial campaign, stayed in pocket, not got undisciplined, he would not be the leader of the Senate right now, which means that even if the Democrats had the Senate, they would not have somebody with that makeup in that position right there. And we'd have at least one more seat in the Senate. Now, you want to apply that a little further along? I can name some states for you other than Nevada in 2010. How about Indiana in 2012? How about Missouri 2012? Those are the rape twin brothers. So let's go with Sharon Angle in Nevada losing discipline in her campaign and losing a winnable race. Just with silly comments and just doing things she shouldn't have done. Then you got the rape twin brothers, Murdoch and Aiken. So that's 3 seats right there. They're only up by what? I think it's 52, 2 independents, 46 right now. Right now. So I've already listed for you 3 Republicans that should have won. Claire McCaskill was vulnerable. You had the seat in Lugar in Indiana, and I already told you about Sharon Angle. Shall we continue? Delaware. Let me not go into how much I'm not a witch. I won't even tell you how much I'm not a witch. I don't like witches. I don't like Charmed. I don't like the witches of Eastwick. I don't even like Bewitched. Everybody liked Bewitched, and I didn't like Bewitched. Do you want to know why? You want to know why I don't like Bewitched anymore? Because of Christine O'Donnell. That was a winnable seat. Now I'm at 4 just from 2010. Now with that 4, I don't have to not only see Harry Reid anymore, but that's not a Democratic leader of the Senate. I don't have to deal with that. Virginia was a winnable seat. Wisconsin was a winnable seat. Now those two are a little bit more on the border. It wasn't like, George Allen was talking about rape or said something crazy. Or Tommy Thompson, said something just absolutely foolish during the campaign season that cost him the election. But what I will say is this. I just listed 6 seats that the Republicans should have been able to secure. In my opinion, at least 4 of them. 4 is enough. 6 was plenty. And I don't have to sit there and look at Harry Reid anymore. And part of the reason why for that is part of what we're seeing. And I'm not saying the Tea Party's bad, because I believe in a lot of the principles that the Tea Party has. And I think that with the proper political massaging to get the messaging correct for more Americans and not just red state, red congressional district, red legislative district Americans, that there could be more success from that aspect of the movement. But when you have somebody against the ropes, George Foreman, you don't go for the knockout immediately and tire yourself out and then get rope-a-doped. And that's what happened to the conservative movement in 2010 and 2012. That's the epitome of it. The rumble in the jungle. Rope-a-dope. You try to knock your opponent out because you hate them so much. And this is the problem. Again, this is what I said earlier. Agree, disagree, find me on Twitter, find me on Facebook. When you're driven by an extreme dislike in politics, it will throw you off every single time. And for the most part, it's the same in sports. It's the same in anything else. In sports, if you hate your opponent so bad that you're out of control, that's when you make mistakes. That's when you bite on pump fakes in football when you're a defensive back because you're going for the knockout blow and you give up a long touchdown pass. Or, in this case with the rumble in the jungle and Foreman and Ali, you're trying to knock his head off. He has the endurance to withstand and go through it, and then you're tired out. You run out of resources. If you can win skirmishes, i.e. the primary, and quote-unquote prove your point, but you don't have the resources to win the general election, or you don't have the discipline to win the general election, or you don't have the foresight to understand that I need this win to get to the next win. We needed the wins that we could have had in 2011 with the debt ceiling, and this happened again in 2012 going into 2013. We had some accommodations from the Democrats and from the president. We wanted more, and then we end up losing in the negotiation because we pushed it too far. At some point in time, just as you don't want to message yourself into explaining why this new entitlement is going to be like the other entitlements, it will help Americans, but we can't pay for it. You don't want to miss the opportunity to understand that you need methodical wins in politics to build a legacy, to build something better for your communities or for your nation overall. And I genuinely believe, as I was watching Harry Reid, that is what went through my mind. We lost focus of that as conservatives, and I will speak as a conservative on this. I know some may not agree with what I'm saying, but I am still a conservative, and this is still true and valid and relevant. If you are unable to figure out what wins you need, what wins you get down the road, and how to piece those wins together over the course of several election cycles, you will never have the momentum necessary to build a real legislative legacy. Look at the Democrats. At one point in time, they controlled nothing under George W. Bush. They came back in 2006, came back in 2008, took a big hiccup in 2010, and then turned it around in 2012. Nothing really improved between 2010 and 2012 except for the fact that the Republican brand name tanked, except for the fact that the conservative brand name tanked. Nothing else really went well for the Democrats. If you really, really think about it, what went well for the Democrats? Let me see. The Tea Party screwed up the debt ceiling negotiations. They got blamed for that. Let's see. There were others out there saying some things that people really didn't agree about, or agree with, I should say. there were other types of back and forth that people really were against. I mean, what's the real big thing that you could say as a Democrat really happened to make America get behind the Democrats that you can't pin on Republicans? That's the thing. That you don't sit there and say, well, the Republican Party screwed up. You know, I was doing an interview on Radio New Zealand yesterday, and Marianne Marsh said, well, you know, part of the reason why, and she's from Dewey Square, love her as a child of God, part of the reason why President Obama got reelected was because of Obamacare. That's not true. The reason why people really turned against Mitt Romney in a close campaign with the unemployment rate still exceedingly high was two reasons. Number one, Hurricane Sandy. And that was an October surprise that nobody can plan, unless if you're a conspiracy theorist and you think he controls the weather. And I'm not going down that path. Number two, and more relevant, is when you start having the 47% comments coming out, when you start having surrogates saying things about, you know, Colin Powell or other people that either supported the president or didn't 100% agree with Governor Romney. Those are the things that turned America against. And I'm talking, when I say America, I'm talking about those in the middle, those independent voters, those on the fence. That's what turned the election, not people saying, oh, I really love Obamacare. That's not what happened. Let's not sit there and say that that's what transpired, because that's not a true statement. Republicans, you got to learn that a win is a win is a win, and you got to build upon those wins. If we'd have won some of the wins in these elections in 2010 and 2012, rather than trying to quote unquote prove our Tea Party point, we wouldn't have had to worry about Harry Reid. We probably wouldn't have had to worry about the president when it came to Obamacare. We could have been in a better negotiating position like the Democrats were in 2007 and 2008. Now, I know you don't want to look at them as an example, but I'm telling you, and I'm going to say this as I'm closing up, there are things that they did right that Republicans need to learn from a political standpoint. Maybe not negotiating or compromising your principles, but from a political standpoint, we need to do better. What do you think? You know where to find me on Twitter. You know where to find me on Facebook. Twitter's LennyMcAllister. Facebook, I got 2 pages. Hit me on either one. I'm looking forward to talking to you tomorrow. I told you I was going to run out of time with this point, but I tried my best. Anywho, let's see how this works out. Let's see if it works out for the American people. Let's see if they can finally get to the table and talk to each other as Americans, not talk at each other as politicians. In the meanwhile, you know I'm going to talk with you because I love you. I'll talk to you tomorrow. TCNGB. Don't forget, Global Grind. Got my article out today. Go check it out. See what you think. Talk to you soon. Take care and God bless.